likes to be able to listen in, so I record these. I usually do video when we do like PTGs and stuff, but I figured audio was enough for this one. Sean, come keep us company. Oh, and Matt. Excellent. So I guess our documentation's okay based on the turnout.
I'll be honest, I've never read it.
You've never read it?
I don't run Cinder.
Well, I run Nova. Come on. So operators, just people interested. What's the background? Both?
Documentation guy.
Documentation guy. Well, excellent. So
Just managing the service for new to OpenStack.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll eventually dive a little more into the operational side of it.
Okay. Cool.
Keep everybody on track.
Docs guy for Red Hat, or okay.
Yeah, I look after OpenStack and Red,
Okay.
and I'm what they call a content strategist. It means I try to understand what the tech guys are doing and then tell the writing guys what it is we need to write.
Oh, interesting. You said on Rev?
Yeah, Red and OpenStack.
I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
We just well, the POC we did was with Rev and our HHI, and
Okay.
it was an exciting experience.
I'd love to hear about it.
So I guess my goal was here so we moved last year we took the documentation from the Docs tree and moved it over into Cinder, where we're managing it now. And I personally feel it's gone pretty well. I don't think the content has suffered from it, and we've been better about making sure that when changes go up, the associated documentation patch goes with it. So that part I feel has gone well. Some of the other things that we've done we've been able to, you've been working on getting the config generation stuff working better, because we had static files for the different drivers' configuration data, and that's being dynamically generated for most of the drivers. Okay. I'm about halfway through getting the matrix for drivers built. What?
How does that work when you're dealing with these storage vendors? I mean, for us, at the time we're using Dell,
Yeah.
and you get the back and forth on some of the things that are required within the driver, and then you got to make sure that driver is available because we're moving to their Scale IO technology, or VXFlex, whatever they're calling it today. And so we had to, before we were on the older stuff, so we had the iSCSI conversation, and so just looking through all of the document, because since Cinder sort of manages storage on behalf of OpenStack and it allocates, deallocates, all of that.
Yeah.
We kind of had some different issues from a security perspective in managing the chat password. So where does we seem to struggle? It's like, you have to roll your own in a lot of these cases. Is that just the nature of OpenStack? I don't know. I'm sort of rambling in a way, but
it's okay.
With a lot of these things.
You mean trying to find what config options are appropriate for the Scale IO driver?
Like the Scale IO. What's kind of appropriate. You eventually find out everything you want, but then you find 4 or 5 resources and you sort of combine them together, and then eventually you come up with what you want. Is there any effort being made from someone actually saying, hey, if you're going to use an HP whatever, this is what you want to do. If you're going to use a Dell whatever, make sure you do these things.
So
Part of the problem, they were Dell.
yeah, that is part of the problem.
Yeah. You have different teams, so the VMAX people like Helen have responsibility for that set of drivers. Scale IO is completely independent people who wouldn't necessarily talk to Helen business unit that has its project, the community, or scale is in a sense responsible for kind of various drivers slash
But I
documentation.
think the question here is more upstream documentation. Have we installed that for a specific driver deployment? We have the general install guide, which tells you
Exactly.
Cinder, the basic configuration parameters. But what happens if you hit random vendor driver X? There's maybe config documentation on what the options are, but no real guide on how to go through that.
Right.
And that's not something I've ever thought of, mostly because I try to avoid proprietary vendor backends. But if that's something you're paying for, you want the config guides there. The question is that something you want to do upstream? You already have the drivers there.
Yeah, I was going to just make sure that you are aware of what should be happening is the drivers should be each maintainer, go down to configuration, under volume drivers, there should be an entry for each LUC, Scale IO, block storage driver.
Okay.
This is up to the driver maintainers to actually put in information about here's how you configure to use our driver, these are the options, maybe these are the best practices.
And this is where I feel like we've done a better job in the last year.
Because a lot of it was old, stale information.
And it used to be that somebody would push up a patch to add, SIO REST server port, and they put a docking patch on it, and whether it actually ever got documented, we had less control over. Whereas now I look at the patch and I'm like, no, I'm not putting this up until you have the associated documentation.
So that's, don't have my glasses on, so that's off the openstack.org.
It's docs.openstack.org. So a little bit of education to help you perhaps. So the official documentation for OpenStack is now off docs.openstack.org / and then you have project name.
Right, like Cinder /
Like Cinder, whatever, / and then latest would be whatever we're building right now.
Okay, so that's the new format. Okay.
Yeah, and then so you can also have Pike / Queens, where it's a snapshot of what the documentation for that release looks like.
Yeah, we're going to be migrating to Pike shortly.
Now, where we struggle a bit, and we covered this at the PTG, is you get to a point where you have the line between, this is, for Scale IO, it's OpenStack configuration, and then you bleed into at what point it becomes Scale IO specific. And we had the same discussion with the different vendors. At what point do we say, well, it's the vendor's documentation versus this is pure OpenStack documentation?
Yeah, and I guess that's what I was sort of narrowing it down is we have a really sharp storage person who kind of, it would be nice if we could have that combination in a documentation. It seems like Dell or HP or whatever this, I mean, I guess if you're using open source type storage, that's a different conversation, but if you actually are using proprietary type storage, it seems like they should have the ability to provide some of that information to make sure their product is going to work optimally with OpenStack.
Yeah, I think it really varies on which vendor. Some are really good about adding a lot of detail in this documentation, or even linking off to their own website that has really good white papers and best practices. Some of these you look at, it'll just be use this driver name. Here are the options.
Yeah,
So,
pretty straightforward stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so the question there is do we need to go and try to go through what documentation we have out there for the individual vendors and try to push them to create pointers back to their documentation? But then we run into the case where you may run into stale links and stuff like that. Now, one thing that we, I've worked on the Docs project in the past to help out with that. And one of the things that we've been doing is we work to make sure that the docs are organized so that Google searches are likely to get, on that. Google is your friend.
Look it up.
OpenStack space, Cinder space, what you're looking for. 80% of the time I find what I need. You know, that's when I do the onboarding stuff and the information for new contributors. It's like Google is your friend. People are like, where do I find this? I'm like, just go to Google. Because I mean, they've got our OpenStack information pretty well indexed.
You used to get a lot of stale information on search results, but I think that's gotten better too, where it seems like most of the time I find still relevant information.
They did something to make it so that, you know, because for the longest time it was stuck on like Grizzly or whatever. But I think they've weighted it now so it goes to latest almost all the time. So that's the one danger, is you could see something that has just merged that's not in your older driver. But it's clear now with the way they have the URLs laid out as to how you get where you need to go as far as the name of it. Which actually, this is more general docs, but might be worth sharing. So if you just go to the docs openstack.org site, you know, the first line is view the docs, and then so it's got all the information here as far as release notes and install guides, deployment guides, administration guides. And when you click on that, so this site goes by default to the most recent release. So this one's on Queens, and then you get the block storage service, and then it drops down into our administration guide. Which I really need to read through all this stuff because I don't know when the last time anybody looked at it was.
One of the things we've talked about is having kind of a decision tree. Like if you're going to do standalone, there should be at least something that says, here's something that here's how you would approach standalone versus a server-based solution versus a POC versus going with the Red Hat version.
To navigate you into a more directed documentation set based on what you're trying to do, rather than here's everything, figure out what you need.
Alert you to the fact that there are in fact these different trajectories you can choose to go down, and then some people benefit just by understanding what there are those choices.
That's
as opposed to a singular kind of everybody's got to go down this one path.
I don't think we have standalone really documented at all.
No.
And I think we have brick ext minimally documented, if at all.
And that would be, so I'd be happy to, if I can figure out how to do it. I think that kind of overview of there are these different ways of deploying Cinder, and at least giving that overview. I'm not quite sure, maybe that would be, the first thing you see, I guess.
That would be nice, because right now it kind of bothers me that you get there and it's just this huge list of things.
Yeah.
We could definitely do something a little better about where do you go from here?
Well, why would you want to use this? And
Yeah.
the standalone is a good argument in a way for why you would want to use Cinder in the first place. Because of its stability and because it's widely supported.
So that's, and the other part that is missing for us that I want to fix yet this release is if you go to the contributor guide, contributors, so this is the new, no, that's not right, community, there we go. How do you want to contribute? Code and documentation. I'm interested in storage. I like this funny horse rear end, and you drop into this, which is just like,
Yeah, now what?
God, what do I do now? So that's one of my, after we get out of here and I tell Miro I'm doing upstream stuff for a while.
It's just this Sphinx index page, Jay.
Oh, I know. So that's, but we need to change it to be something more inviting that explains to the user, here's why you're here. Here's it, basically going from the onboarding information that I have in those slides as an introduction to the project that then splits them out to. And I know right now we just have the default location that we're going to.
But I mean, you could, it's just an RST file.
Right. I know. I'm going to do it. I'm just saying that's one of my to-dos is to make this friendlier for people who are coming in and new to the project.
Because I've had that problem with tenants forever.
Mhm.
I still haven't updated it because I'm still in size. So Jay, I had a question.
Yeah.
When was the last time someone checked the install guide?
That's one of the topics. Do you have a particular reason you're asking?
Because I went through the install guide by hand. I didn't do the Cinder section because I didn't have storage, but
Okay.
it worked for everything else. But it also, I have, there's no documentation anymore for installing from source, which was annoying.
Oh.
You can steal the Python bits from my blog post because I had to know.
Could you add a link to the Etherpad at some point?
Yeah.
With that. So, yeah, the install guide, and we talked about this 2 releases ago. What are you giggling about? Or 2 PTGs ago that we needed to go through the install guide and verify it. And I started going through the Red Hat part, and you started looking at Ubuntu. How far did you get?
I think it seems to go okay. There's some discrepancies in terms of things in the config file that don't show. Should be there and not.
And that's probably changed, and the docs were not updated.
But, most people would be savvy enough to roll with them, but it would be nice to have, if this header isn't here, then it's okay to put it in, things like that.
Hmm.
In the file. Just, I think that, from my point of view, the bigger challenge is it kind of abstractly tells you how to get the Cinder service running on the server, but it doesn't really tell you what to do next. So now I actually want to make this get the storage to it.
So lead from installation into usage rather than just dropping off. Okay, you have it. Yeah, okay.
And then pointers to the specific vendor backends is largely missing or not. You say now, so if you own X, Y, Z vendor storage platform, you would want to allocate driver instructions for that. Just those kinds of
So,
things.
man, that would be trivial to at least link to that page. That
Yeah.
has the driver specific documentation.
Yep.
It's those kinds of signposts that are largely missing that you have to put together. So. And you can Google your way through it.
Yeah, but they shouldn't have to. JP? Yeah, that's good input. So right now the install guide. I was glad to see we have upgrade documented.
Yeah, that is a rarity.
Who did that?
I think when we added rolling upgrades, versioned objects, I think that was added.
Nice.
When I was starting my
So another thing that would help from a practical point of view is to create some of these in Launchpad. So that, to me, looking at this whole thing, it's hard to know what's prioritized, what would be the next thing to work on that has some sort of consensus or support. It's a lot easier to say, oh, okay, here's a specific thing that needs to be worked on that people agree is a challenge.
Well,
also-
also there is low-hanging fruit, and then if someone is looking for a way to contribute, that would be a great way we can find.
Because otherwise, yes.
So, well, we just got to get you not afraid to jump in and send patches out.
It is scary.
Because, I mean, Sean and I want to fix the docs, and you're motivated, so.
Yes, and even quasi-capable.
So, yeah, that's a good point that you go through the install guide and then you're like, well, now what? And I still have a to-do to go through the install guide and figure out how much of it is duplicated that we could collapse down to like common files.
Rel, Ubuntu.
Yeah. Yeah. And the problem is, I've been through RHEL somewhat, and Eric Harney's looked at it and went, it should work. SUSE, I asked Walt to look at it, and he was like, he's been busy, apparently.
Why wouldn't you just point to the Red Hat or SUSE docs that they provide?
Well, because the docs that they provide assume that you're using a solution like O or something like that, rather than just using their
Just installing it
on Red Hat. Yeah, it's kind of two different use cases.
You're still using the packages.
What's that? You're still using their packages?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Which may or may not be.
possible.
Well, no, may or may not be what you actually should.
Oh, gotcha. That's another point.
I think that tree guides seems very kill. For example, in OSA, we have the same list of tasks that are run. We just pass different package names, and at the end it works. So it's probably easy to do like just one guide and say, oh, but if you're using that, just change to that. That's what we did, at least.
Collapse it down to one guide with multiple command sets in it.
Yeah, it reduces the amount of code, and also it makes it less scary to try.
Okay.
Just install. That's what we did. Maybe it's not applicable here.
Right.
It seems like for most of them, it's just a difference of what command is run, so we should be able to collapse it down. Just run this.
The issue with that actually is with the install guide plugs everything together. It was written with the assumption, choose your own adventure from the start.
Yeah.
So you'd have to collaborate with the docs team as well as the other projects team if you want to pivot the install guide that way.
What do you mean?
No, because I think all of the choose your own adventure installs land here. Right.
If they click on the Cinder, yeah.
Yeah.
But it would be a different, right now they are all following this pattern of installation for Red Hat, installation for Ubuntu.
Oh, okay.
So once you do have the Cinder service up and running, should we be pointing back to Nova or to some other service that you can see?
I know the installation guide before it was broken out into the separate projects would be this complete follow your own adventure, choose your own adventure thing that would go through install Nova, install Neutron, install.
It's the same way.
Does it still look like that? Because like you get to the end of the Cinder installation guide, I don't think there. Yeah.
Well, the flow before was when I did it for Okada, and I think that was when this was happening. It might have been like last one, this one. then Cinder, and then there was like the option was like if you use Ironic, use Horizon. I can pull that now.
Well, it's actually kind of a problem to, in a sense, figure out how you should navigate or even how you would guide someone to navigate. Because in a sense, you have to figure out how many more services you want to have running, and then when you get back to where you're actually driving the car, those services are available.
I almost, so with your question about priority and what have you, I wonder if we should start an Etherpad to
Yeah.
keep notes in. Didn't we do that already somewhere?
But to me, you know, if we got it on Launchpad, as a tabs, call it a line.
Okay.
It's just, because then you go from the what should I do brain mode to the vote. And then you do just some tabs.
Okay.
So we could work on it together, but at least if the things that we're writing down here are translated into a specific
A bug. Okay.
then it would be easier to say, oh, okay, here's what I used to do.
It's almost too bad that we're not on storyboard for this one, because this one, organizing this via storyboard could actually make sense.
Do you want to make that a beta?
I don't think we can take, I don't know, I could ask Kendall if there's a way to just use this project as a starting point. Anyway, because it would be nice to have this story, improved documentation, task.
Yeah.
Oh my God, she would be quivering right now to hear me actually saying something positive about storyboard. He's thinking about using it. Other thoughts?
Well, then the other thing you could do with that is from a prioritization standpoint, figure out so where we want to just accomplish in this 6 month period.
Yeah. I mean, my goal in the next month and a half is to get the new support matrix pushed up there, create the right kind of landing page for the contributor guide, that kind of thing, and then if we can put together a list of priorities and start working towards it, that would be something. Do you have other things that you've had on your list as you've been poking around, or have you just been hitting things as you see them?
Yeah, just whenever I see something that annoys me, I'm trying to clean up.
Okay.
But to me, the other thing is there's documentation that's being performed by the developers who are making changes, fixing things. And there's a separate work stream which is overarching documentation, strategy, overviews, and things like that. And it's a little confusing to me to differentiate between the two. When is this really the developer's job? When is this documentation? Yes.
I don't even know
consume documentation
Consume documentation,
Or-
consume
or-
upstream stuff?
yeah, anything?
Well, historically, all the upstream documentation activity happens at this time frame, and all of our guys have started working at this time frame over here, so it's always been an issue to try and, work together. But we've totally changed our process, so now our guys are over here.
Good.
So we're sort of at the point now where we can come to you and say, look, we've got these guys working on all this stuff at the same time, can we contribute?
That would be awesome.
And do stuff. And as a matter of fact, we're just sort of embarking on a project right now to restructure our entire storage set of documentation for the user based on user stories. Everything we do nowadays starts with a user story. So when you're looking at organizing the documentation, how do I plan to implement storage? What prerequisites do I need to know before I install? Okay, how do I install? How do I configure? How do I test? And
That
everything
would be
is sort of
great.
broken down underneath all those things. So, I mean, we're at the point now where we're just starting to develop a top-level outline of how all this stuff should be and what kind of user tasks we need to document. So there's basically three kinds of documentation: procedural stuff, conceptual stuff, which is descriptive, and the way we ask the engineers about that is, what procedures does somebody need to do in order to use your product successfully, number one. Number two, what concepts do they need to understand in order to do those procedures successfully? And we do it that way so that the engineers don't throw a whole bunch of conceptual information on us that the user doesn't really need and gets in the way of finding what they're looking for. And then there's the third category, reference information. So, like your list of drivers or list of commands or whatever it happens to be, that people can refer to if they're not familiar with a driver. They're going through a procedure and it says, you can use this driver. Oh, I need to know more about that driver. Go over here and read about it. Go back to the procedure, keep going. So we're sort of organizing around those concepts, those principles. It could be once we get going, then we have some stuff that we can contribute to you along those lines that might help.
And if it makes it easier, if we need to restructure the way we're doing our upstream documentation and make it kind of fit even better in with what you're doing for Red Hat specific documentation.
Yeah.
Whatever can make this.
Yeah, the difficulty always been is, of course, you've got lots of companies either using or consuming or contributing, so prescribing based on one downstream customer's principles might be kind of difficult.
Yeah.
But the other nice thing that we're doing that might help that is we're sort of breaking apart the books into modules. So we write a module, we don't write a book, and a module may be one procedure or one cluster of procedures that go together, or one concept or one reference module. And it can be presented that way or amalgamated into different formats of books. So it's like building bricks, and you can build any kind of house you want with the bricks, but the bricks are kind of standard format and can be used in multiple set of applications. So I think we may have some stuff that you guys will need. And from our point of view, or my point of view, asking what is better for the designers to be writing versus the documentation people. That reference set of material is something that they are intimately involved with as they design. And perhaps getting them to write that stuff into a template so that downstream we can build scripts that automatically pull and create reference books from them. That would be a great help to us because we just don't have the horsepower to write everything up that should be in a reference book.
Yeah.
So, stuff like that.
Cool.
That's certainly the overarching goal is to rationalize this.
Yeah.
Another thing that occurred to me too was troubleshooting, which I have yet to find. But there's almost nothing seems to really work the way it's supposed to. There's always some glitch or problem. And, we had almost like a problem database that people said, well, if you experience this problem, it's probably X.
It gets tricky really fast because of the amount of things that are moving in an OpenStack one. Yeah, it's just like it could be Cinder, it could be Cinder's interaction, Keystone's interaction with Nova. It could be package you're using?
Well, the one way we're gonna approach that is just talking to our TAMs and find out what's the most popular use case or user input every month. What are the high runner complaints that the customer complains about, and just write out those. And start to build a library of troubleshooting procedures. Because when you do a troubleshooting procedure, you primarily need a diagnosis piece and then a remedial action piece. And those two things can be sort of different. If you go through a diagnosis, you end up with 4 different fault conditions. So it's a case of a diagnosis procedure and then a fault correction procedure.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's just I'm more wondering how much of it is the responsibility of the Cinder team.
But we don't have, what I think Hagen's getting at is the basic, there's not other than in various presentations I've done because I was stupid when I started and had to figure it out myself, and then Walt and Kurt and I did presentations that are, here are your log files. Here's where you find them in what situations. Here's the basic, because there's about 8 or 10 things at least that everybody who plays with Cinder for the first time mucks up. And we don't have it well documented anywhere. Here are the basic tools to unmuck yourself.
Well, the other dimension of this is that you can't get the build driver number. There's nothing that says email this or open a ticket with EMC. Just something that would say, so what do you do now? Is
Yeah.
there, because what TCS does is they WhatsApp me so that I get up the pellets and we set up the call. Those are all secret.
Yeah, that
It
should.
should be something a little more overt. Even if it just says call support.
Yeah.
Better than nothing.
Call your vendor support.
Support contract. And the assumption is due.
Well, I'm curious. So Red Hat provides its own OpenStack distribution, and others do as well. Is everyone contributing back to the community, or are you keeping a couple things held back because you want to use your distribution?
No, because all the documentation we have is in front of the paywall, so anybody can get access to it. The business model is more the support, getting through to the TAMs and getting direct support that way. So there's nothing held back in documentation, at least not as far as the official public documentation is concerned.
A big part of our support actually comes up as an So we partner with Dell and Red Hat, and most of the investment we're making in OpenStack is that way.
Yeah.
So I guess the good news for you is it's all out there. Bad news is it's not. If you go to docs.openstack.org, it's not going to be there. It's not going to get you there.
That's kind of my point.
Yeah.
At least it ought to point you to say, if you're interested in this, then whatever problems, then there's some.
Yeah, next level of support. So, yeah.
Yeah. At least knowing at what point, well, this is something with my back end versus this is something with Cinder. I call Red Hat, I go to the Cinder channel, I go to my back end vendor, which is it.
I think it's all jungle boy training.
Yeah.
1-800.
Yeah, I've signed up for the listservs, and every so often you get some good hits, but most of it's just kind of chatter. It'd be nice to kind of have a, because I'm sure people have run into different issues. Just have this big bucket of, and it's categorized out into different areas.
Well, I think to the earlier point, there are so many different conditions that come up. You can't hope to document every trouble that anybody could possibly have, so you've got to try and figure out what the high runners are and
Yeah.
focus your efforts there.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good.
I think this was supposed to wrap up at 10:30. I don't see anybody knocking the door down, but any other thoughts, questions before we wrap up?
I guess the only question I had was in sharing sort of what we're doing, how can we help?
Yeah, I was going to follow up with you. How do we get you looped in, I think would be the question.
Eric introduced me to earlier.
Red Hat, right? Kim Nallinger? Yeah. Kim just joined us in November, so she's on a very fast ramp-up mode and learning not only about Cinder, but every other form of storage there is, including Ceph. So she's working on all that stuff right now, and she's working with me on this restructure.
Yeah, Eric Carney's been our main contact at Red Hat.
And he whenever we do our detailed planning and we're trying to assimilate what all those user stories are that we need to run back.
So I should maybe get your contact information and then follow up with you in the future. Are you on IRC?
I am, yes. And it's just the front part of my email address that's my IRC ID.
Cool. Good. Yeah, let me absorb what we talked about today, and then get an IRC meeting together between the 3 of us or 4 of us, or a Zoom meeting or something.
Sure. And that's fine, and I'll probably want to replicate that meeting with the other storage folks, the Swift, the Sahara, and all those people as well.
Manila follows what we do pretty closely, so that shouldn't be a Yeah. And I'd like to probably better understand what you guys are doing too, so we'll bring this on.
Sure, and just remember that, as I say, we've just totally changed the process, so some of that is still evolving.
Right.
But yeah, I'm sure we can do stuff.
Okay. Cool. Well, thanks for coming by and
My pleasure.
giving your input.
Do you have a business card too?
Unfortunately not.
Your name is on the schedule.
Yes. Yeah, and I'm jungle booking out here, so. Yeah. Just check out the Cinder wiki. It's got my contact info there. It's a PTA.
Okay.
So, yeah, I moved to Lenovo, and somehow I've yet to actually get this.
It took me 2 years to get one.
Okay, so I'm not beyond you yet. So,
Almost extinct.
yeah. Every time I come away from a PTG or a summit, and I'm like, man, I wish I had business cards, and then I forget about it because I'm never like face to face with people. But cool. Well, thank you very much. It was good to meet you.
And you too.